10 million years before the first brewery, before the first vineyard, before the first fermented anything, your ancestors were already drinking alcohol, not by choice, by evolution. And that single fact changes everything about how we should think about what alcohol is doing to our bodies today. Let's start with the basics, because the word alcohol in everyday language means one specific molecule, ethanol. Two carbon atoms, one oxygen, one hydroxyl group, C2H5OH. It is chemically simple, almost embarrassingly so. And yet, this tiny molecule has one of the most complex relationships with the human body of any substance on Earth. Here is the something most people never learn. You and I did not discover alcohol. We evolved with it. Approximately 10 million years ago, long before Homo sapiens existed, our hominid ancestors experienced a genetic mutation in an enzyme called ADH4, alcohol dehydrogenase 4. This mutation made them approximately 40 times more efficient at metabolizing alcohol. Why? Because they had come down from the trees, ripe and fermented fruit falling on the ground full of naturally occurring ethanol had become a significant food source. The hominids who could process that fermented fruit without dying had a survival advantage. We are their descendants. So before we even begin the health debate, understand this. Alcohol is not a foreign chemical invader that modern humans stumbled upon. And it is a molecule that shaped our species' evolution for millions of years. That does not make it safe, but it does make it biologically meaningful in the way that, say, high fructose corn syrup simply is not. Intentional brewing, humans choosing to make alcohol, dates back at least 9,000 years, possibly more. The reason alcohol became culturally universal is not a mystery. Let's look at the neuroscience. When ethanol enters your bloodstream, three things happen almost simultaneously. First, it binds to GABA A receptors, your brain's main inhibitory system, amplifying the signal. Says calm down, anxiety decreases, inhibition drops. Second, it triggers dopamine release in the nucleus accumbens, the reward circuit, the same pathway activated by food, sex, and social connection. Third, your brain releases endorphins, natural opioid-like molecules, reinforcing the social bonding experience. This is why a drink before a difficult conversation feels like it helps. This is why wine at dinner feels communal, not just chemical. The reward is real. The pharmacology is real. Understanding this removes the moralization from the conversation. Alcohol is popular because it is a precise pharmacological match for what the human nervous system rewards. The question is not why people drink. The question is, what does it cost the body to pay that reward? Now, let me tell you why the science on alcohol and longevity looks so confusing. For decades, observational studies showed that moderate drinkers lived longer than abstainers. That finding became the foundation of the one glass a day is good for you narrative. But those studies had a fatal flaw. The sick quitter problem. Many people in the non-drinker category are former drinkers, people who stopped because they were already ill. When you lump them with lifelong abstainers, where abstainers look unhealthier than they actually are. Moderate drinkers look comparatively better. Not because alcohol is protective, but because the comparison group is skewed. When researchers corrected for this bias, the protective effect largely disappeared. The August 2024 GAMA study of 135,000 adults over 60 found no level of drinking improves longevity. Long drinking slightly increased cancer death risk. Moderate and high drinking were associated with significantly higher risk of death from all causes. And the US Surgeon General in January 2025 formally listed alcohol as a risk factor for 7 types of cancer. Let me be precise here. The science is not fully settled yet. There are still credible researchers arguing for cardiovascular benefits at low doses. The National Academy's 2024 report did find moderate drinking associated with lower heart disease mortality, but, and this is critical, the heart benefit does not appear to extend to the brain, and it certainly does not appear to apply to cancer. We are not dealing with one disease. We are dealing with a molecule that does different things in different organs simultaneously. Let me tell you something uncomfortable about the brain. A 2025 analysis found that even moderate, no-dependent alcohol use is associated with reduced grey matter and white matter volume. Not just in heavy drinkers, in people having one drink a day. The hippocampus, your memory and learning center, is particularly vulnerable. The mechanism involves ethanol's primary toxic metabolite, acetaldehyde. When your liver breaks down ethanol, it produces acetaldehyde first, a compound more toxic than ethanol itself. Acetaldehyde causes oxidative stress, damages DNA, misfolds proteins, and triggers neuroinflammation. The largest dementia study, published again in 2025 across hundreds of thousands of participants, found that heavy drinkers had a 41% higher risk of dementia. Even light drinkers showed increased risk. The protective effect for cognitive function that researchers believed they had found was backwards. A statistical artifact of sick-quitter problem. Here is the nuance I want you to hold. The brain does not have a threshold dose below which alcohol has no effect. This is not alarmism. This is what the data shows as of 2025. It does not mean one glass of wine destroys your brain. It means if cognitive longevity is your priority, every unit of reduction matters. Let's talk about metabolism. When alcohol is present in the body, it becomes the liver's priority fuel. Your liver processes it first, before glucose, before fat. This means fat oxidation effectively stops while alcohol is being metabolized. For anyone focused on metabolic health, weight management, or insulin sensitivity, this matters. Chronic alcohol use is now understood as a spectrum condition for the liver. The newer name for the fatty liver disease reflects the overlap between alcohol-related and metabolic fatty liver. Even moderate, regular drinking can contribute to hepatic fat accumulation, impair insulin signaling, and disrupt glucose homeostasis. And remember, alcohol provides 7 kilocalories per gram, more than carbohydrates, more than protein, with zero nutritional value. No vitamins, no minerals, no fiber. From a metabolic efficiency standpoint, it is perhaps the most expensive fuel source available. This is the part that should concern anyone in our audience. Alcohol accelerates biological aging, not as a metaphor, literally. 2026 research using epigenetic clock analysis, specifically DNA methylation clocks and Grimm age and Horvath models, found that heavy drinking can advance your biological age by up to 6 years. These clocks measure how your cells have aged at a molecular level, not how old your passport says you are. Alcohol increases oxidative stress, drives DNA strand breaks, and dysregulates the methylation patterns that control which genes are expressed and which are silenced. Chronic exposure essentially reprints your biological calendar forward. And while this effect is strongest in heavy drinkers, even moderate consumption shows measurable epigenetic acceleration in the literature. The intervention point here is not complicated. If your goal is longevity, defined not just as lifespan but health span, alcohol is pulling the rope on the wrong direction. Every other lifestyle investment you make in sleep, exercise, nutrition, stress management, alcohol creates biological noise in those systems. Skeletal muscle. This one surprises people. A 2025 review published in the American Journal of Pathology found that 40 to 60% of people who drink heavily show measurable skeletal muscle maladaptation. The mechanism: alcohol suppresses the mTOR signaling pathway, the pathway that controls muscle protein synthesis. It also impairs satellite cells, the stem cells responsible for muscle repair and growth. What this means practically: you can do the workout, consume the protein, and alcohol will blunt the anabolic response. For anyone over 40, where preserving muscle is one of the most critical longevity interventions available so far, this is not a minor detail. Sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass with age, is one of the strongest predictors of frailty and early mortality. Alcohol is a sarcopenia accelerant. Sleep. This is perhaps alcohol's most deceptive effect. Alcohol reduces sleep onset latency. You fall asleep faster. This is why so many people use it as a sleep aid. But here is what happens after you fall asleep. A meta-analysis of 27 studies published in 2025 found that alcohol significantly suppresses REM sleep at all doses, even low doses. REM sleep, rapid eye movement, is where memory consolidation occurs, where emotional processing happens, where the brain clears metabolic waste through the lymphatic system. High doses of alcohol can almost completely eliminate REM sleep in the first half of the night. The second half then becomes fragmented, lighter, and more disrupted as the alcohol is metabolized. You sleep, but you do not recover. The next day, that I slept but I still feel tired feeling, that is not the alcohol making you tired. That is the loss of restorative sleep architecture. And for everyone using sleep as longevity tool, which you should be, one night of drinking is equivalent of 2 or 3 hours of lost recovery. Now, if you have watched my lectures on the gut-brain axis and the microbiome, you already know what I'm going to talk about. And if you have not, go back and watch those first. The link is in the description. Alcohol is one of the most consistent and well-documented causes of gut dysbiosis. What that means mechanically: ethanol and acetaldehyde damage the tight junction proteins that line your intestinal wall. This increases intestinal permeability, what is commonly called leaky gut. When those junctions open, bacteria and toxins, specifically lipopolysaccharides or LPS, enter the bloodstream. LPS triggers systemic inflammation, liver inflammation, neuroinflammation. The gut-brain axis is now carrying inflammatory signals in both directions. Alcohol simultaneously reduces populations of beneficial bacteria, Lactobacillus, Bifidobacterium, while allowing pathogenic bacteria to proliferate. The result: reduced microbiodiversity, disrupted short-chain fatty acid production, impaired gut-based serotonin synthesis. Remember, approximately 90% of your body serotonin is produced in the gut. When alcohol disrupts the microbiome, it is not just a digestive issue, it is a mood issue, a cognitive issue, a systemic inflammation issue. The gut-brain axis does not distinguish between moderate and heavy drinking. It measures disruption. So where does this leave us? I will not give you a number. Not one glass is fine, and not zero tolerance. Here is what the evidence actually supports. First, there is no dose at which alcohol has zero biological effect. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you something. Second, the effects are dose dependent. The difference between occasional low-dose drinking and chronic moderate to heavy drinking is enormous in biological terms. The harms accelerate non-linearly. Third, context matters. Your genetics matters. Your ADH enzyme variants affect how quickly you clear acetaldehyde. Your current health state matters. Your sleep architecture matters. Fourth, the organ hierarchy matters. Even if the cardiovascular data in favor of moderate drinking holds up, which remains genuinely contested, the brain data does not support the same conclusion. You cannot borrow protection for one organ and apply it to another. And fifth, the most important thing I want you to take from today: the decision is not drink or don't drink. The decision is, am I making the choice with accurate information? For most of your life, you have been making this decision using data that was either wrong, incomplete, or manipulated by industry funding. Now you have better data. What you do with it, that is yours. Let me leave you with one thought. Your body co-evolved with ethanol for 10 million years. It built enzymes to manage it, not because alcohol is beneficial, but because it was unavoidable. The modern context is different. We are no longer eating fermented windfall fruit to survive a winter. We are making daily choice in an environment of abundance. And the evidence across brain, muscle, sleep, metabolism, microbiome, and epigenetic age consistently points in one direction. Not because alcohol is uniquely evil, but because you at 35, 45, 55, you cannot afford the biological interest payments. If you want to go deeper on any of the systems we covered today, gut-brain axis, sleep architecture, metabolic health, These lectures are on this channel. Start here. And if this was useful, share it with someone who is still working with outdated information. I will see you in the next one.